Hello and welcome to a very special episode of the Bitcoin News Show right here on the World Crypto Network. Ladies and gentlemen, we have today Mr. Andrew DeSantis and Gabriel D. Vine. I very much wanted to get Andrew's thoughts on this. He was kind enough to come up with this idea, notify me on Twitter that he'd like to share his thoughts, and kind enough to come on the show and share his thoughts with everybody. So I'm really excited to get his take on what the hell is going on right now in Bitcoin, about the current situation, about the user-activated soft fork. It's been a while since he's been on the show, so we're really excited to have him back. So Andrew, thanks so much, man. Thank you so much for joining. And let's get right into it, man. So just real quick, tell us what are your thoughts of the current situation? What's going on? And hit the mute button. It's at the top. You gotta everybody else.
So yeah, dude, believe it or not, I was hanging out with some people in LA who aren't they're not necessarily Bitcoiners. They're just people that have Bitcoin. There are a lot of people that have become millionaires, by the way, from holding Bitcoin and then holding Ethereum and then it going up, and they have no political idea of any of it and no technical idea, because Coinbase's withdrawal limit prevents them from pulling out more than $20,000 a day. So they can't leave. They put in such a small amount of money that they weren't worried about withdrawal limits. And now it's impossible for them to withdraw and actually hodl. So they get stuck in the trading loops, and they go, Andrew would be described as a Bitcoin maximalist. I don't want that to offend you. And I'm like, dude, my strategy is totally 10th man. I don't have an opinion about any of this. I just read the output of the data, and I hope that the terabytes of storage that I'm not using and the gigabytes of RAM that I'm not using is used for meaningful crap in the future, as opposed to just getting filled with spam. So my thoughts are, it's as chaotic and hilarious as I thought it'd be.
Welcome to the Hotel California.
Exactly. I'm just serving drinks. I'm not, people think I'm in the fight, but I'm a huge troll, because that's how you do security. You troll every single idea, and you try to pick and find the thing that is most wrong with it from any aspect, until everyone thinks through every outcome that could happen, and you basically pick the result that has the best net benefit, because you're never going to actually secure things. There's always going to be a trade-off, like the WikiLeaks dumps. Every single day we've had something new. So Bitcoin hasn't gotten more secure, but we haven't had a major hack, and it's because people are actually aware that nothing is secure, and these withdrawal limits, I guess. Things are interesting.
Very interesting to hear that those people to be trapped in Coinbase. It's that's
why
one of those.
Coinbase paid out.
Yeah, it's one of those.
People lost money, you don't want bad tuning forks in the system. They actually, I think, want a good community, but they're going to find that with high frequency trading and time, they can't prevent things from bad things from happening.
Let me ask you this before we get into the user-activated software. How do you think Coinbase is going to handle this user-activated software? Because I've heard rumors and stuff and read tweets that they're not going to support it, and because we saw how they handled the Ethereum fork not very well, right? Lost many tens of thousands of dollars. So how do you think? Do you think that they become more prepared? How do you think that they'll handle August 1st date okay, or are you scared for them?
They're going to not tell you anything, and then they're going to do what's in their best interest, which is what's in their customers' best interests. So they're probably going to freak people out by halting withdrawals at some point, not because they're insolvent, but because they don't want you to hurt yourself. And that is basic, and that would piss me off if my money was there. But when you think about it, do you know who's waiting for a fork, a bank run right now? Every hacker out there. Everybody's waiting for you to download. Dude, there's not a single Bitcoin wallet software site that I don't feel bad about, because I've downloaded ISOs for operating systems that have been modified, and I've seen bad BIOS, and I've seen crazy stuff. There's no way I'm running a DMG file or an exe file from a website. And if I build it from source, I'm going to have to build everything, including the language itself from source, to even build the actual client. So like, unless you're running dedicated hardware or using a brain wallet, like your opinion's kind of irrelevant as like a developer, because the protocol, it exists and it is. It's like, that's not changing. We don't, the technology doesn't create Bitcoin. The technology interprets Bitcoin, but Bitcoin is this thing that exists. And one of the things I tweeted earlier was, what would happen if we could prepend Bitcoin? Like, actually figure out a way to prepend the Genesis block that's legal within the protocol. And then I realized Satoshi took the Genesis block out of the chain. So technically that's not possible. Technically, it doesn't matter if you can prepend it, because it's actually a JSON file that gets pulled in as a reference to bootstrap the system. And therefore the system has...
Does this have to do with not being able to spend the Genesis block? Is that kind of what you're referring to?
That's why you can't spend it. You can't spend it because it's not actually part of Bitcoin, which means there's not actually 21 million Bitcoins, which means that whenever we get to the last block, it will be mined, but a reward won't be granted because the sum of the reward will be greater than the total value of Bitcoin. And since that happens, everybody keeps mining. The miners don't have a concept of value. They just have a concept of how many blocks they're allowed to mine, well, like what reward they're allowed to get at a certain point. So they're going to keep mining at the end of Bitcoin in an infinite loop, and that's a feature as well. That's a double feature for how Bitcoin works, that it depends on a logical paradox, in that Bitcoin is 21 million, but not actually 21 million, and miners continue to mine for fees because of this infinite loop at the end. Think about it. If it hit 21 million, what would stop miners from going, all right, screw it, we're just going to keep mining? Nothing. This actually locks them in at a protocol level to the fixed 21 million size. And it has to do through a lie.
Yeah, it's very interesting because, a lot of people call Bitcoin a pre-mine, because technically, Satoshi did use some form of some very early form of basic
ASIC hardware. Most of those, think about this, how mined a good bit of the early coins, and then how died knowing or thinking that he could be freezed and brought back to life, which means those coins, like the keys, they're not anywhere that we're going to be able to find them. I bet you that Hal had more of an early chunk of the Bitcoin than Satoshi did. And I'm willing to bet that those coins never move because they will be in Hal's possession unless Hal comes back.
Well, definitely Hal. We know that Hal gave some Bitcoin to his family. We know that, and he was very happy.
He wouldn't give it all.
Oh,
that would be dangerous.
Right.
Hal was frozen, like to come back to life frozen. So they're safe. Nobody's gonna find them.
All right, very cool. So let's get more into the user activated soft fork then, and the crazy outcomes that's going to coming. Everybody's of course looking forward to this this date. It's because nobody actually knows what's going to happen 100%, right? And the price has been reflecting the market's uncertainty on what's coming up. So Andrew, if you could just give us your thoughts on the user activated soft fork and what the outcomes you think will happen.
The user-activated software is going to be interesting because user-activated. Do you have like a chart of like forks or like what people think forks are, so that I can have a reference real quick that's like common with you? Because the user-activated soft fork is, it's like SegWit being activated on August 1st, but it's also like a hashtag tied to stuff, and then people like attribute certain devs to it, but it's like, I didn't make a user-activated software website. I just put a hat that Samson gave me on. And I like the hat. If he had given me like any hat, I would have really worn. Yeah, I like hats. This one, I don't even really like Blue Jays that much, but Toronto was cool. And somebody bought me a hat while I was there. Yeah, exactly. So what I think is so very interesting. It actually relates to this. I think the user-activated soft fork has a lot in common with Casper and Ethereum, and like I think they're actually going to be friendly later. I think user-activated soft fork like is how Bitcoin goes proof of stake in a sense, And it goes proof of stake via web of trust. We're not going to actually validate the transactions by hand or like go backwards on stuff, but it's like one of those things where your contribution to the network as a node, securing it, not producing it, and then your economic abstinence as a hodler or holder creates a situation where you can collectively pull more of the thinking human computers in and have them agree on a common subset of rules than you would normally be able to. And in that sense, I see that as Bitcoin somewhat bootstrapping this like computer that can operate at higher dimensions than machine computers alone. So I think the user activated soft fork is like potentially the most powerful computer in the world. Like no limit on what it can do creatively. And I think that in time, that's going to be very interesting, if that makes sense.
Okay, very interesting. So then what about the outcomes? I don't have a chart with me, but there has been, of course, some people that have been put out all of these different possible scenarios. Jimmy Song, of course, did an article, as well as there was a meetup in Canada that Tone just did a live preview or a live broadcast of on his channel, and that they have some different outcomes as well. And so, you know, you pretty much have, right, you have UASF, SegWit2x, and Bitcoin ABC, right? Those are the
What is
main...
Bitcoin ABC, by the way? I saw someone tweet about it, but I couldn't even tell if it was half a joke at this point.
So
Bitcoin
Bitcoin
ABC, mean
ABC,
that as a jab. Like that's just like,
yeah.
Are we gonna? I need to go ahead and get BitcoinXYZ.com. Because logically, that's the next one.
Right. Yeah. So ABC is Jihan's hard fork. If the user activated soft fork gets activated, they're going to hard fork to this Bitcoin ABC that has no SegWit in it.
So that'll be interesting if they sue or get sued with ASIC Boost, because like having a specialized chain that has value would be considered like a private like product, and they wouldn't have the protection of the crowd yelling fuck patents anymore. So like that would become it could become like a geopolitical event for them, which would be bad for Bitcoin only if they were merge mining our chain. Like if they're merge mining Bitcoin with their fork or their derivative or whatever they want to call it. Oh, and by the way, so like Ethereum in China is Ethereum Classic, and Ethereum Classic in China is Ethereum. Like what you call Bitcoin and what we call Bitcoin, like it doesn't matter what you think something is. It just matters what the state of the chain is, and the fact that someone has it clear. Yeah, in China they trade as Ethereum original chain and Ethereum to like fork chain. So ETH is the fork chain, BTC is original chain.
Well, that's the same. That's the same in English.
Well, no, I mean, everybody here calls Ethereum, you know, the forked one. Everybody calls that Ethereum, and then everybody calls the original chain Ethereum Classic over here in America. But it's the reverse over there in China, is what Andrew was saying.
Is that true?
They have an almost like British humor about it. Yeah, I'll show you a tweet later from a buddy of mine whose dad.
And they use the letters backward too, the ETC.
And the screenshot he sent me, it was just Ethereum, and then inside brackets original chain, and Ethereum. Yeah.
Wow.
So like the way they look at it and the way we look at it doesn't have to be the same thing for us to trade what is the correct thing. So like it really doesn't matter what they call it.
Interpretation is very interesting. Anybody can interpret it however they want, but at the end of the day, all that matters is the blocks.
If they troll us by forking off, then they open themselves up to a patent thing. And the guy from RSK that was involved in ASIC Boost told me a couple months back that he's no longer involved, which makes me think that it's like a patent troll or something has control of it. And then it becomes a sovereignty thing. So like as like in general, it's bad, but not bad for us because like they won't be coming after us. They'll be coming after an individual company. And so I think it's a dumb move. But I know why they're doing it, because they're, following their nose or whatever. One of the things that I think is interesting is I kind of see Bitcoin at this point as before you learn about like atoms, before you learn about cells, you have like a base unit of what things are, and you don't really go further than that. Like you'll start asking questions but then you start to learn new things. And so, like at first, I had the atom, but then I start learning about electrons and neutrons and protons and shit like that. And, I just keep going down and down and down. And it's like with CERN, with the atom smashing, each time they break things up, we learn something new. You start to see new patterns. And I don't necessarily believe that Bitcoin as a thing, at its base cell, like base primitive, at its most quantified state. I don't necessarily think it is what we see it as today. I think it's very important that the time aspects of Bitcoin stay the same. But I don't necessarily think the space aspects of Bitcoin are what we think they are. And in fact, I think the space qualities of Bitcoin could be very centralized as long as the time qualities of Bitcoin are very decentralized. I think they can kind of coexist.
Can you be more specific about what's time and what's space qualities?
Okay, so so Bitmain has an incentive to increase the space that we can use in transactions, like a huge incentive, because it improves their ability to memorialize their mining. So they can reuse past results to have an advantage in the future. And that works when you increase the space, but it comes at a cost of time. But in every other aspect of computing, that cost is actually known as an optimization. So they save time. But what that means in Bitcoin is that they pull money out faster. And that's a money leak. So you have memory leaks in C programs, but in Bitcoin, if you have a flaw in your logic, you have a money leak. It leaks money out like crazy. And so Bitmain found this first, and no one knew what it was called. And honestly, if you speak Chinese as your first language and you're getting trolled all the time, what are you going to do? Go on Twitter and just say hey, yo, we found this thing that it's springing money up. No, it's it's a gold rush. It's like oil wells. It's there will be blood. You go find these holes in Bitcoin and you're going to make a lot of money, and there's nothing anyone can do. Because the one thing about Bitcoin that's true is that the state of the chain, as it is at any given moment, is the valid state of the chain. You can't go backwards. We can get confused about going forward, but that's really all ego and semantic, because, most people don't even know what a side chain is. Most people don't know what a drive chain is. Most people don't know what colored coins are still. There are things that they would probably call Bitcoin, and it may or may not be Bitcoin. And to talk about it is really irrelevant, because none of it would exist without Bitcoin. And Bitcoin wouldn't exist without a centralized creator, at the base of it. So everything's a paradox and everything's super confusing.
So to prevent that confusion, so the space, you were kind of referring to block size and maybe other capacity concerns. And what is the time oriented aspect?
So the time oriented aspect will be, and I had a mini storm about this the other night, conversation with a guy named Grooven. I talked to a lot of anons. Grooven is one of my favorites because his name's funny. I think that the base chain, which won't fork and it will always be here, will act as this hard metronome. So we have a 4/4 count in music. It'll be the 10-minute count for every other chain. It's a 10-minute amortized count. And then what'll happen is derivative chains will sync back. So once you mine a block, you'll also do a transaction in our chain, the base chain, that syncs your Merkle root into the next 10-minute block, so that anybody can look up the state of every derivative or parallel chain. And you can have parallel derivative chains on derivative chains. But then for that to happen, the use case has to become more specialized, because you're propagating back on multiple chains. Because if you want to update your block if you want to put a block you just mined in the chain below you, you have to pay for it to put their block inside the chain below it. And so the further away you get, the more specialized it gets. And that's when the fractals curl, if we were doing a fractal zoom. So I think that the base chain fills up with static noise in time, but it's really just going to be miners pegging their own Merkle roots to the chain that is best suited for their business, updating its information in the base chain. And the beautiful thing about this is I can retroactively do this without the permission of those miners, because I can just replay attack their chain and their Merkle roots as transactions. Replays are features. And so like, I'm not really worried. The longest chain thing didn't account for Bitcoin actually being a tree, if that makes sense, as far as space is concerned. And whenever you look at like Satoshi taking the first block out of the blockchain, like we were talking about earlier, that really, in a decentralized way, forces us to like acknowledge in the future there will be this thing called Bitcoin time. Right now, Unix time is still useful because we're not running in the year 2038 problem, because it's not 2038. But in the future, using Unix timestamps is going to be a nightmare. So I think we're going to switch to Bitcoin timestamps, and that'll be seconds since the Genesis block. And that'll be tracked and validated in 10-minute increments by the base chain. And I don't think that's going to go away. I think that's going to be a very strong, dependable thing. And I think that's where the value will be. Like, as a holder, you're going to want the most valuable coin to a holder is coin that has never been moved on that base chain, because it'll exist across all chains with the lowest fee to move around. And
that's already the case. There's a premium on virgin coin.
That is the case. That is the case. And that means that the current situation is every future fork already for those people.
So then let me ask you this, Andrew. Do you see the user-activated soft fork passing, or do you see SegWit 2x passing? Or do you see SegWit 2x just activating BIP 148?
No, they'll all activate.
How do you see
user-activated soft fork doesn't have, it has the longest time horizon. It already exists. It's a state of mind shared between individuals.
Okay.
So it costs nothing.
Do you think SegWit 2x? Do you think SegWit 2x?
That's going to cost miners money, and miners are going to have to compete with other miners. So that's going to, it's going to really come down to who actually has the best mining optimizations and who actually has the cheapest power. Because eventually they will stop mining something that they cannot find market liquidity for. And if the markets go freaking nuts, like with each fork, it increases the uncertainty of what Bitcoin is, which makes it easier to get hacked or scammed, because you're going to Google what is Bitcoin, and then people that have been like waiting for you to do that are going to hit you with like specialized page rank grabs. And so when it becomes risky to trade Bitcoin because of forks, people will stop forking and they'll try to actually squeeze down and go back. So unless they have a plan for creating derivative chains from their chains or side chains, then they're going to consolidate around one hashtag eventually.
And that will be the user-activated soft fork, right? Because
no, the user-activated soft fork, it'll be like somewhat like a binary star relationship of whatever the miners decide is their flavor of the week.
So SegWit 2x, you think will get activated then, and will compete with UASF, basically, the original base chain?
I don't think SegWit 2x, I think, is it could be super real, but I don't think it is, because I don't think either side has the best side. Like the other person, no one's compromising. So SegWit 2x, whatever Craig Satoshi Wright, or whatever the hell his middle name is, whatever he's doing, the one that's like $20 billion nodes that are going to mine super big space blocks, that one's going to probably be the one that works, because that's really good for when miners become exchanges. They're going to use really optimized array-based programming languages that are going to effectively be able to take Bitcoin script language and like actually extend the living crap out of it, make it pretty powerful. So it'll be like a Lisp interpreter. So I don't know what's going to necessarily happen there, like
right.
all the way down the line, but I think that that's where it all consolidates.
Okay. But then, so just immediately in the short term, you think that both UASF, of course, that has to activate because it has over 1,000 nodes, so that's going to activate. But then you also think that SegWit 2x is going to be activated and run by the miners, more than likely.
I don't think they're going to activate SegWit, because I don't think it's in their best interest to activate SegWit. I think it's in their best interest to expand the space aspects, but still like keep
So okay, so
It's
they're
like
going to
if you-
stay on the original chain without SegWit, and then
if you have anonymous transactions, then we can start putting data. So I encrypt some of my Git repos, and GitHub they're giving me free private repos for free because I just use a fake name and I mix up the file names and then I encrypt all the files. Bitmain does not want that to happen because they want all the data that they're processing to actually be readable data. It's only useful to them if they can use the data themselves. So anonymous transactions are a scary concept to them because it would be like GitHub saying, we're gonna allow you to just straight up store nothing but encrypted stuff. That does not fit the business model that they've been playing with. I think they'll coexist, but they'll both rely on the time quality. And in that case, I kind of see it as there being, kind of three splits initially, 2 being derivative chain. So it's blockchain plus 1. And then there's just the base chain. But they're all Bitcoin. It's just we're finding out that the space and time aspects of Bitcoin aren't necessarily. We're finding out we don't actually know that much about Bitcoin. Like we really don't know that much about Bitcoin.
I agree. I don't even think even the main best experts on the planet, like the core developers. I mean, they don't have everything figured out either. They've been working on this for years.
As much as anybody knows, the thing is, how do I say this? If no one reverses a transaction, then what are we thumbing our nose at? Like we can complain that we have a bit more anxiety in the 10-minute windows between finding out that transactions have been screwed with. But even the spam attack that got revealed, that's only interesting because it compounds. It's not interesting because we should stop it, because someone can do it. And it's like within their financial interest to do it now. And it's within our interest to find out, why are they trying to do it, and why did they let us catch them? Because they could have thought it through better. I think the whale that dumped the Ethereum, it caused the flash crash. He split the Ethereum because he didn't realize that you don't need to split it for replay protection anymore. So the guy that did it revealed a lot about himself by revealing that he doesn't actually know that the replay protection was fixed. I know more about the replay protection aspects of Ethereum than the guy that bought into the pre-mine of Ethereum. And I've never held an ETH. I've only held the ETCs. So they're basically, being dumb doesn't last very long. That's why in the Kaiklos it goes from anarchy to monarchy. Eventually the smartest people on all sides will emerge within the system that is Bitcoin as a whole, and they'll build basically empires on top of it. And there's just nothing anybody can do to stop them, because no one, they're the only ones, I guess you could say, that will be not confused. And they could try everything in the world to tell everybody to not sweat it and not freak out. But people aren't, because there are a lot of people that are trading on these crypto exchanges are trading on leverage through credit. So they're rich, but they're scared as hell that they're going to lose all their money and then they're going to have a credit card bill. And so in that sense, because they can't pull out in a massive amount, they create this anxiety for themselves. But they don't realize that Bitcoin can go to zero, and there can be loops of an economy moving elsewhere because people will do tasks for Bitcoin with no trade value, because I could pay my rent in Bitcoin. I can buy food in Bitcoin, because we have guys that actually have cattle. We have guys that actually live on boats. So the market price is an illusion. It's not a real thing.
Sure. So and we've been telling people that for a long time, that really, if you want to know the actual price of Bitcoin, you just go to local Bitcoins and use the most use the country with the most problems, like India, and whatever the price is over there, that's more closer to the actual real price of Bitcoin. But so let me just recap them real quick. So you
price
think
will be 800,000. It could be $1 million per coin, but it'll be 800,000 because you need some noise for people to get weird.
Right.
And it's because there's 21 trillion Bitcoin, $21 trillion in the money supply. That 21 million will map to it, but it'll end up at 800,000.
But the velocity of Bitcoin is potentially a lot higher than the current ecosystem. So I think that will be a downward pressure on the price because you don't need as many units in order to transact and have as much economic activity.
Well, that's where we get to, as we start moving up the Kardashev scale, instead of holding Bitcoin, you're going to start holding futures in the form of containers on boats. Right. And instead of having wars, we're going to have aircraft carriers that get repurposed as information processors that aggregate or find the cheapest source of energy. So like your boat, you're going to be on a boat because nobody's going to want to hold the miners. Right. And you're going to go to the cheapest oil place because you just need to be going somewhere. And
that's just one example of the many new types of economic activity that are enabled by Bitcoin. So in order
nuclear subs, we can hack the fuck out of them because they run Windows XP. Like, so like it's fine. They can't fix them. It's hard coded in.
Yeah, so I think the increased velocity will be more than outweighed by all the new use cases, all the new economic use cases.
I'm legitimately afraid that I might trigger a nuclear bomb someday with a recursive bug.
By accident, yeah.
By accident.
Quick question, and then Vortex, you can jump in with what you were going to say. But you mentioned you were talking about the Kyklos, which is, I believe, Plato's idea about
some opinions on it.
Say again?
I Machiavelli talked about it. I think it's Plato, but I
think it's Plato.
I came through it Patrick Stanley.
Okay, yeah.
Patrick Stanley is just some dude.
So he told me about it. It's the political cycle of political systems, and you were talking about the move from an anarchy to monarchy, and I think I agree that radically individual empowering technologies like Bitcoin do increase the likelihood of sort of meritocratic sort of outcomes. What is your time scale? Because I feel like we're just kind of entering a more anarchic time now. So your idea is that anarchy is very unstable and will resolve into this meritocratic thing within X amount of time. And I was wondering what
I think we're in anarchy. There's rare payment channels, and Donald Trump was elected president. You don't think we're in an anarchy?
Yeah, I think we're getting there quickly.
No. We literally turned everything into a joke. Everything is a joke.
It's like the trolls won.
Not only did they win, but now they have jobs.
Yeah, right.
Okay, they're actually serious individuals.
Given that we've arrived,
as a joke, and Mike Cernovich is like actually a source of raw information.
Right. Everything's on its head. So okay.
So anarchy is almost over.
You think we're already at the end of anarchy? It's only like an 18-month cycle, and boom, we're going to move right into
No. I think it's been a multi-year cycle. It's probably been going on since Steve Jobs died, and Scott Forstall got ousted. But I think that it's been on the fringes, or maybe democracy run amok has been anarchy for a bit.
Sure.
But like anarchy is like a bootstrap script. It's a spark. It's not necessarily something you sit and hang out around at, because like if you do something stupid in anarchy, they kill you. Like you don't survive very long in anarchy. And we've already had Ross Ulbricht got put in jail forever. That sucks. Nobody else wants to have that happen. Anybody that does it knows they got to kill themselves. So like D-Snake died, which sucks. But he knew it. Like he knew it was gonna happen. Like one of the quotes I put up by him was like, "The moment you hit enter, you just know there's gonna be a massive fucking manhunt for you." And like, he knew that shit. He knew it. Like the day that they arrested him and took his 5 mansions and all his Lambos and took him to jail, he knew it was up. But I respect that because he wasn't a scammer. He kept it real, and he knew what he was doing the whole way through. And that's just crazy. He proved it could be done. And there'll be 1,000 of him that pop up if they don't like actually create better routes of trade. So that anarchy phase is about to go monarchy, because you
think it's like a 1 decade thing? You think it's like a 1 decade thing, and we're just about to go into
I posted earlier that if a tribe of hodling lesbians want to take me captive, I will be an open source. I'm open source to servitude. I will just, I want to scale horizontally if possible, because I believe that if you give all your money to one kid, it'll corrupt them, and we'll teeter-totter back and forth in the kyclos in the wrong way. I think we can dodge it by going full Darwinian. And it's literally, what's the purpose of life? Earn Bitcoin. And then what's the purpose of dying? Spreading your Bitcoin to as many people within your
community or
your local unit.
Yep.
It's Dunbar's number. If my 180 were all kids of me, holy shit, like the smartest ones would get paid the most, and then they would have more coin to do stuff with. I would not give the dumb ones more coin.
Okay, so let me bring this back around a little bit for a recap. So real quick on the UASF. So Andrew, you think the user activated soft fork is definitely going to get activated, and you think that the miners will probably not run SegWit2x because it's not in their interest to have SegWit, so they'll probably stay on the base chain without SegWit.
What does it mean though? What is it SegWit2x? I mean, SegWit2x has always seemed like them trying as hard as possible to separate the activation of the hard fork and the soft fork. So I just don't see them just la-di-da, let's 90% the soft fork that we didn't 90% before. Right. So logically, it does not make sense for them to do that.
So you think they'll stay on the main chain without SegWit, the base chain, and then what 148 will be the chain with SegWit and everybody else goes.
So when people were shitting on Garzik for the chain stopping, they revealed their intent. They revealed that they want to actually try to explicitly mine above 1 megabyte to actually not cause interference with the base chain, I think. And in that sense, that's a smart play because it moves people towards the miners, to the exchanges, and they're becoming the exchanges because Antminer or via BTC said that like they're an exchange now. And that's logical and it's actually more secure because their supply, it's coming from their miners, if you think about it. Like they actually are able to add money to their supply. So they have to increase the transaction capacity, the number of transactions per block, so that they can basically have all the trading happening on their exchange, and then in 10-minute increments, solidify it and like lock it down, if that makes sense.
Okay, so again, you think, sorry, just for my own understanding, so the miners will more than likely be mining both the original chain and the user activated soft fork with BIP 141.
They're going to be mining the base chain.
Yep.
And they're going to be mining whatever chain is within their financial interest to mine. So if they have infrastructure for an exchange, it'll probably be a chain with a really large capacity for transactions. And if they're not doing that, it'll probably be a SegWit one where they have the capacity to take part in the Lightning Network and stuff. And the merge mining will keep the base chain safe. If they don't merge mine it themselves, someone will.
Okay, but so then you think that SegWit2x will likely not be run and activated?
Don't quote me on that because I don't.
I'm just trying to figure it out. Like
somebody's gonna nitpick it because these are hashtags. These aren't actual Bitcoin. Right. Bitcoin's just this YAML file that I convert from a level DB thing on my computer. Okay, so it doesn't self-identify as anything but a honey badger.
Right. So let me switch it up then. So what do you think then? Because you did mention it a little bit. The 20K nodes. What do you think of that concept? Is that will we
That's
reach
actually
that?
pretty cheap. Because KX's K costs like $250K per year. So the hardware is probably gonna be expensive so that they can like keep pirates out. But the software that runs on the hardware, once that like kicks into gear, that's gonna be patented like crazy. And then it's going to be regulated because when you go to the patent office, you tell them what you're doing. That's always going to exist until it blows itself up, which is awesome because in Bitcoin, when you blow yourself up, everyone else gets to take the spoils. It's not like 2008. So it's just
very interesting concept. Yeah, that's very, very interesting concept, because when 2008 happened, obviously, you know, the only people that made out were the banks with their bonuses being bailed out by the taxpayers. But with Bitcoin, technically, like, it all kind of goes to everybody who's in Bitcoin. Like, so if we mess up, like, this chain, a new chain will be started, our coins will still work on that chain, and
someone will short it.
Yeah, and someone. So there's always some value to be gained. Yep. Okay, very interesting.
Bitcoin is like it's an implicit prediction market in that sense. So you can bet against it, and Bitcoin is the chain that always gets it right. Has a perfect record since 2009 at predicting the intent of everybody that moved money on it, which is pretty good.
So you think 20K nodes is definitely going to be a possibility in the near future, and that'll.
But my computer costs 15K, so like this is a 20K node.
There you go.
So like,
well, I'm just. What do you think? How will that affect the decentralization then? Because we all know that nodes are the ones that validate.
Become aware that Bitcoin's not really that decentralized, because it's not. People are like, what do I need to use for my fee prediction? And I'm like, I'm pretty sure it's open source JavaScript code. Just pull out the console and look at it. And by the way, what I was trying to say earlier, not that you interrupted me, because I'm the one that usually interrupts people. A problem that happens with new programmers, like when they move to C, is they try to take things from Python and JavaScript that they've learned, like true and false as concepts, and bring them to C. You'll see like macros, like CPP macros for 0 as true or as false, and 1 as true. And that doesn't even make sense, because when a program returns 0, it means it's successful. And if it returns anything else, in some cases, it means there's an error. And so you start having these return true, return false, and you start erroring your programs out because you're thinking that you're doing something right, but you're confused. Like that's what's happening with these finance people that are coming in, but they can't leave because it's Hotel California. They put their money in thinking, oh my God, we can day trade on the weekends and no one will catch us because BTC is in Russia, but we'll shit on Russia so that people will get all Christy about it. And like, then people will be confused if we can get away with the arbitrage. They don't realize that they can't pull their money out without hackers taking a cut. There's a hacker fee on stupid usage. And that's always been my beef with Ethereum, is it's just not profitable to fuck with them. It's just more profitable to hold 0 days and then like sell it to a nation state later. Because like they're amortizing or delaying people cashing in on fucking their stuff up. Because like eventually, like when you're hacking something, intrusion detection, you don't want to get caught like while you're doing it. And so like as someone that's cursed with like hacker attributes, I do it with jokes. Like if I want a job, I'll hack a company. I found out yesterday, by the way, that I can totally inject anything I want to into medium.com source code and have the HTTPS like show up with you. So I'm going to do when I did that Medium post yesterday, for my whole thing's on the left side of the screen, I'm going to do an injection for like specific users in the future, where the right side is like all kinds of fun stuff. Like people just see this huge like random thing on the left side. They have no idea that I can put whatever the fuck I want on the right side, because I have root access to whatever the fuck I want. And that's how like I go about life. And I don't abuse that. Like the trackers like from Google Analytics do more than what I can do, but I know how to fuck with those things so that I can do whatever I want to do. And I opt to not do it. And then people tell me, but capitalism, exploiting the market, getting whatever you want. Like at scale, I kind of think that capitalism and communism become the same thing. It's just a matter of perspective. So
interesting. So let me ask you. So I got another couple questions then. Side chains and drive chains. You know, you mentioned that not a lot of people know or understand them. I wonder maybe if you could just give us a quick overview of what they are and how you think they'll be used in the near future.
Yeah, I will. So any summarization that I give is going to not do justice to the website that no one reads. It's just drivechains, or is it drivechain.info? Drivechain.info. I tried to squat a bunch of the Drivechain names, but I didn't get the .info, but the .net one almost got. And if you go to www.drivechain.info and then go to literature and then hit original post and specification, Paul Storzik wrote this giant piece on what they are. And what they are is essentially freezing coin on chain and having another chain act on behalf of that coin and having the ability to move coin from that chain back to the base chain in the form of a transaction. And that's it. And they work. And we're going to be using them. Like, there's going to be a lot of them deploying, and how, like, what we use them for and how they're used is going to be so weird. It's not going to map to something that you already know. It's going to map to something that you have no idea about. And so that's like one of the things that DOS is like zero tier as a technology is really cool. It's this virtualized networking thing. But you don't have to know that it's really cool, because Apple makes them get, if you're a Mac user, you don't have to know, because Apple makes them get a special certificate if they want to do what you would usually do in Linux with device drivers or kernel extensions. I think on Mac, a device driver is a kernel extension. And on the Mac, you have to get permission from Apple to have a kernel extension unless you hack their certificates protocol, which you can do if you think about it long enough. But for the most part, like, zero tier is a legit thing. So like DOS is going to be, well, what it is like a kernel extension interface for your mind. And so right now, Bitcoin is like what's bootstrapping that into existence, like going, hey, let's all talk about Bitcoin and understand that it as a proper noun is a thing. That's pretty cool. Let's add more proper nouns, and then let's see what happens when we compare the proper nouns and combine the proper nouns. And that's what a drive chain is. It's a driver. It's a chain that's a driver. It's like a string in string theory, but it's a driver in terms of logic in your mind. So it's a brain extension. And people don't understand it because it's too meta. And when they start talking about it, they try to get too meta about it. And they try to make meta languages about their meta languages to talk about the meta language that they've never even looked at because they were too busy talking about it.
So basically, you think that drive chains and side chains are a very important and serious thing, and that these will be coming online like really soon.
The only people that have been building it have been people that are funded by the miners.
Yeah, Paul Storz.
Drive chains.
Yeah,
side chains as a concept has been thought through by hackers and by protocol designers, but drive chains, like,
there's only one person working on drive chains, and that's Paul Storz, right?
Well, RSK is a fork of drive chains.
Okay, so
RSK forked it earlier, and they have a different. They set different values for their, I think it's synchronization with the miners. I don't like the RSK synchronization one as much, but it's not an issue because to express my not liking it, I can just replay attack them with another drive chain that fixes it and then say I'll quit if they lower it. So like, you can do all kinds of hostile takeover shit with drive chains. It's pretty cool, which means that like hackers are about to be lawyers, because if you're competing with open information, and when you realize that most hackers are lazy, they don't actually want to run anything. They're just going to do things to troll you to fix things, and it'll equal out in the end without anything being lost because of the replay aspect of it. And that's like why I say a bunch of these ransomware attacks now, that's actually white hat hackers saying like, oh, you wouldn't listen to me? I've told you 1,000 times to patch your machines. All right, well, screw it. I'm just going to use this NSA 0-day that I found and just destroy it. Every hacker knows everything the NSA and the CIA can do now. So it's like not even, because the NSA and CIA were focusing on Apple and Android, and then they scared the crap out of everybody, and everybody uses computers weird now. The only people that know security are the protocol devs. So it totally, that balanced out. WikiLeaks totally wrecked everybody that wasn't us, like Bitcoin. And they're so confused, they don't even know what to be confused about anymore.
Vault 7. Funny. Yeah, Vault 7 is basically what
I was freaking out about it.
Yeah.
Turned out that was good for us. Because we didn't have to piss the nation. We didn't have to discredit the nation state. They did it for us. And it wasn't even Trump's fault, because he was just, the guy that took over the ship. And what are you going to do when you find out like the entire world is like, doesn't trust you, and they don't trust you because you have these big guns that you just got like possession of? You're going to be probably you're going to try to do nothing. And that's why I thought the entire time that whole election and like what America is moving into is just so funny.
Okay.
Like
what about side chains? Maybe so a little bit. Just maybe if you could just describe a little bit about side chains and again, when you think we can't really decide what they're going to do, but when do you think they'll come into play?
So they'll come into play as soon as there's no more fallout from August 1st. Drivechains were set to launch in July. Like it's an easy thing for Bitmain and other miners to just say, okay, give me some of your Bitcoin for free. Because essentially what you do is you peg the Bitcoin to a chain, and then they merge mine it. And you're just giving them fees out of that Bitcoin in the form of mined coins on the side chain. So there's all these investors saying, hey, like, so think of the Lightning Network as a bunch of investors that know each other. And then think of side chains as just like Bitcoin that's frozen in place that establishes a web of trust among miners and investors, which is why the exchanges become miners in the long run. And so what happens is these investors, they go to the miners and they say, hey, we're going to freeze this Bitcoin in place, give it purpose, and you're going to get fees for protecting it. Please don't steal all of the coins. And by steal it, I mean do a verifiable transaction that shows that you cashed out the entire stack of coins that were set there and just put it onto an exchange that you controlled. Like, that would cause so much damage that it's just not within the game theory, because they can always do this. And so, that's it. And that can't happen until the exchanges aren't dealing with a ticker crisis.
Right. So basically after August 1st, we got side chains, drive chains, Lightning, all of this crazy stuff that's going on.
Lightning's already here. It's on Litecoin. So Lightning as a concept is just
as a concept, but I meant
an abstraction that's modular with certain states or environments. So that'll a lot of the stuff's here. It's just people are so people think that to be relevant in a situation, they have to be an argument, if that makes sense. And there's a difference between arguing and just trolling the point so that it's illogical to continue arguing. And a lot of people just don't. It's like how like Solomon had to build a temple, but David couldn't build a temple. And that's because David was like, he spent his career chopping heads off. You can't build a temple if all you know how to do is war, if that makes sense. So like, we really have to have all the war-torn people run out of business when the promises they've made investors don't come through, and then they can't find financing. And so like, once that's happened, then it's just people that only know Bitcoin as a sort of bigger than them thing that they're trying to comprehend, but it will always be changing at a rate that, not changing, our understanding of it will always be changing at a rate that's faster than what they can catch up and then get like ahead of. And so in that case, it becomes just interesting as a concept.
Very interesting. Okay. So very cool. So yeah, it just seems to me like just so much stuff is going to explode after August 1st.
Oh, dude. Yeah. I mean, it's gonna be crazy. I'm going to fully leave Twitter by then, and I'll just be replay attacking Twitter. So like it's like right now I replay attack Twitter. Like everything I say on it, it gets replayed to my own private Twitter that I'm incubating and like tweaking the protocol of, because Twitter is actually pretty complex in terms of like the language types, which is why I was like really against them increasing the max message size, because there was a certain type of lingo that developed from the constraint. And so my response to that and the censoring has just been to do nothing but think on Twitter all the time, so that I'm just extremely annoying in that, like, I flood everyone's feeds because my threads are so long, but they're actually just raw thought. So like no one can really attack it because it's just raw thought. And so what I told some people to do, like Naval, he doesn't even follow anymore. He consolidated me to a list so that he could check in every now and then with like certain people and types of things that he wants to see. And now people are starting to understand like what it means to start thinking in channel division, CDMA. How I said Bitcoin is going to be CDMA, like we're going to leverage that as a concept, channel division. To make people realize that, I've just been attacking the network by flooding it with meaningful spam to show that not all transactions are spam, but you're going to need channel division if you want to actually get shit done. Otherwise, the one that creates the most noise will win. And Gilder quotes the father information theory. I forget his name right now because I'm tired. But basically, the best signal, the best conduit for signal is white noise. And so by having like Bitcoin as a space concept become this channel division thing of a consistent metronome for time, I think it becomes more decentralized, even if certain branches of it centralize all the way out. Because I mean, really, what's the difference between a blockchain and an append-only Git repo that's GPG signed and hosted over BitTorrent? Like, if all increments are signed and there's no one will accept prepends, what's the difference between that and a blockchain, other than the fact that the data, the new information that's being created, is meaningful instead of meaningless? The meaningless data is really good for storing value, but the meaningful data is really good at creating value, because that's what created Bitcoin, was a chain of information creation. Bit and coin, bit as a concept, smallest unit of information. Coin, to name something is to create it. Bitcoin, info, create, information creation. When you create information, if you do it in a certain way, it's effectively Bitcoin, but not a currency. And so, like, most people don't get that because most people can't even use fucking Git.
I like that definition, man. That was great.
Satoshi Nakamoto means witty and from central origin. So, like, his name is like, I'm a cheeky centralized bastard, and you just don't listen to anything I say. And none of us did, and then like it worked out because the game theory checks. And then people ask me if they should hold random shit coins, and I don't understand. Like, I really had a lot more faith in people's ability to read. I really did.
It's really hard, because a lot of people, as smart as yourself, they go through the world thinking that there's got to be other.
I do stupid shit all the time.
Yeah, there's got to be other people that are smart as you, right? But in reality, there's just there's the masses, and then there's the people that create the technology that the masses use, and that's just kind of how it's always been. But let me ask you this:
Wizard works.
Yeah, Wizard work. Yeah. So let me ask you this then. Let's go on to this subject. Could I get your thoughts, or maybe even your vision of what you see the security sector kind of evolving into now? We have Bitcoin security and trusted hardware. Like, what's on the horizon? And what's your vision of this, of people using trusted hardware and using Bitcoin to create trusted hardware, like this new era of trusted?
So I just tell you guys this because, like, I haven't told anybody. So it's not really a secret. But the creator at ChipSec, that tool Intel made, and they did it open source, that like had this module that would have protected me, and I wouldn't have gotten ransom, lost all that fucking money. They released it after it got leaked from WikiLeaks. The dude quit, and his co-founder, like the creator of that project, they left and they started a company. And he messaged me, like, want to do a call, and he was like, "Yo, I'm looking for clients to like secure their endpoints, and something tells me that like you just would know people that are just getting hacked." I was like, "Bro, I got an idea. Like, we should work together." He's gonna help me secure everybody's chips that use DOS. Like, that's what DOS basically is. It's just using protocols in driver format securely and just getting people together so we can make noise. Hopefully have some become signals. And in that sense, like, it's a computer that only exists when we're out all using it. And the goal is to take one of these tweet storms one day and have it never end. So like you and me could leave, but there's always going to be people creating information together in a chain. And it's effectively, if you think of that as it uses Bitcoin as a logical driver, like it imports it in. But if you have the tangled hierarchy concept, it becomes like rap genius for blockchains, because effectively you're just creating and annotating ideas out of the void and syncing the Merkle root of those ideas with the base chain, the blockchain itself, so that you never have a data integrity problem. And when you no longer have data integrity problems, which is simply Twitter being censored and not syncing with the blockchain, then it never ends. The threads, they just go on forever. Every little bit of conversation that could happen gets added in, and you just move on indefinitely. So the idea is to just be the resident agent of this thing and to bootstrap it, and then just kind of watch the whole world literally reshape itself around energy consumption optimization and information creation environments that are like conducive to creating as much functional output as possible.
Okay, so
like architecture and stuff.
So you mentioned DOS a couple times, so maybe you could just tell everybody what that is and how long until you think you really get it.
I mentioned what I cut out. I mentioned
sorry.
DOS.
Yeah, so you mentioned DOS. I was wondering maybe if you could just tell us, describe that a little bit to us, and when you think you're gonna release it.
Oh, dude, I'm gonna do. I gotta make sure that like nobody is gonna like be able to sue me or put me in jail, but I'm gonna sell the DOS planets like next week over Urbit.
I thought you were talking about denial of service attacks, and I realized. But why aren't you saying Deus? Is it
Deus? Like I don't even know how to say DeSantis.
I think it's Deus because that's God, right? Deus.
I don't know how to say DeSantis correctly. I know how to read it and see it as a symbolic representation, but my jaw, I got hit on a kickoff return, so I can't even talk that well.
Well, so maybe you can describe then what is Deus? DEOS. What is that operating system? What is?
So I took the way of my way of thinking, realized it was useful a couple years ago, and then open sourced parts of it that I formalize. And I almost formalized all the things that I've ever thought of in code. And then instead of thinking new thoughts, I dedicated all my time to creating a magazine and a news outlet for teaching people some of the things I thought about. And Bitcoin became the most time consuming thing that I had to deal with. And so DOS as a concept is the same thing as an iMac. It's a computer for you to use personally and to use it very safely, to feel very trustworthy, like trusting in it as an environment. It's a web of trust that will be only as useful as it will ever be until I die. And hopefully I have like 20 kids and they're not shitheads and they take it over. But like, it's just basically me building a computer operating system for thinking in the open, because dude, there's like 5 like clear black hat hackers. Like no one's stargazing or following my work except for like the hardest coreest, craziest sons of guns out there. And then like one guy from the W3C that I'm pretty sure is going to sue me like for some reason in the future. So it's just like, I just put it all out there in the open just because that's the only way. Basically, my code doesn't get better exponentially. It goes linearly, but people's demand for my code will exponentially increase. And then when the network effect increases, the value of it will increase and it'll self-actualize. And it doesn't have a blockchain because it's just a Git repository of signed GPG. It's a chained set of signed GPG commits.
So it's a very secure open source operating system that you're developing.
Yeah, but like it's become so useful now that I found 0 days in Twitter, Medium. The fact that they're not GPG signing EOS commits, I consider to be a 0 day. And
is this how you can like bring up tweets from like 3 or 4 years ago? Just
yeah, it's all memonized. It's all like I have a logical system for doing search that is embedded in my brain. So I use this thing called the DAO pointer, and there's a meta pointer for like self-referencing stuff. And I just increment my expression with that particular URL, and then it returns that data to me, and it works. It works so well that I get like a stupid amount of followers that they don't even realize that like I'm not thinking, I'm not computing the concept, but I am overseeing every action. And I'm using all the thoughts that I've already thought. The only time I'm thinking is when I'm freestyling in a fractal with someone like Mark and Gabe. Gabe joined us, so that was cool. But even I had to like correct Gabe. I'd be like, "Yo, dude, I know that you think everything's a fight, but that's not what we're doing. It's okay to be wrong, because and sometimes you're gonna be wrong on purpose. You're gonna 10th man an argument
Being
just
wrong
to get
is a
people.
sidechain.
Yeah. And then whenever it fails, it still exists unless Twitter censors it, and it's okay. The world doesn't end. But what's bad are the Me Too's, the replays, when people like don't have anything to add, so they just add Me Too, and then it breaks the chain, and that's why
the rhythm. It's like a 7/8 bar or something.
it throws it off.
Yeah, because I think people were interested in that. Like, how can you just like bring up tweets and information and links from like 3 or 4 or 5 years ago, just casually in a conversation while you're tweeting. Like you tweet all normally, and then bam, here comes a tweet from like 4 years ago, proving your point perfectly.
Right. And Twitter's search is notoriously slow and cumbersome and terrible.
I totally pawn Twitter, dude. They just can't even do anything anymore. I don't even break their rules, and like I'm pretty sure, like as far as their feminist meter goes, like I'm off the charts. Like they can't even be mad at me. So it's like Twitter's funny.
Okay.
What's interesting about it is how do I say this? Did you see after that Ethereum wallet got hacked, the Ethereum Classic one, and they were asking for who controls these addresses, and I responded in like 4 seconds with each one's actual owner?
Yeah.
I've minimized all the addresses, so like I probably have more data than these like companies people are all freaked out about.
It was within seconds. It was within seconds.
But I don't like make a website for it or sell it to people. It's just like if I ever reference the data set where people dox themselves willingly and then they connected themselves to other people through transactions, like it's not hard to infer who the controller of a wallet is from the pattern of the wallet. Whales are like obvious occurrences. And so I memorized it, and then I made a protocol for memorizing it. And then, logically, things like Zcash and Monero have emerged as reactions to the fact that that's possible. Now,
wait a second. Did you memoize or
I memorized the data, and I memorized the logical pattern to look up the data.
Okay.
And then the combination of both is how I'm able to cheat time. So effectively, it looks like I'm faster, but I'm not. I'm just as slow and dumb, but I'm more efficient. But once we're all more efficient, it creates this event horizon, and it pulls everyone else in, because we become so fast that we stop speaking normal English and we start to babble. And that's when it gets crazy.
And that's when everybody's running DOS, pretty much.
Basically, yeah. Because like by design, it forks with each commit. Every commit is a release, and every release's tag is attributable to the creator. And so every addition is a fork. And so there is no base chain. It uses Bitcoin's time aspects to be like an orchestra of people creating music together. It doesn't try to fuck with time. It tries to create music across different space dimensions. And it's easy to do when people aren't having a religious war.
Very interesting. So as a final subject, I believe that you had some conversation today with Vitalik on Twitter about the user-activated software. I was wondering maybe if you could share with us that occurrence.
Dude, I think that we can do some interesting attacks on Ethereum that are actually features in the long run for them. Like they have this miner problem where they mine coin to secure a blockchain, but they don't really need a blockchain for what they're wanting to do. And we have this whole like everyone's trying to coin blockchain as a thing, but the people that they're actually hanging out with, like Ethereum, they don't even want their chain in the sense in its current form. And so like my proposal to him is like, let's when this is all over, let's have each individual smart contract have a side chain made, and then let's replay attack the proof of stake Casper smart contract actions on a side chain, and basically have Bitcoin level security, but proof of stake for their stuff. And so I told Vlad like a long time ago, I think that in the end, it all comes back together. And the only thing though is like, you know how they have like 2 pyramids upside down and like they're stacked with the bases on each other? the binary star, like the E8, like supernova. I'll send a link out later. I have this model for how like emergence would happen. It looks more like two pyramids on top of each other with the pointy parts connected instead. And so part of me can't help but wonder if they knew this and built out like the dark energy aspect of Bitcoin to troll us, knowing that it would come back around later. I'm not entirely sure how smart they are, so I have to figure that out. But I thought that was an interesting meme that would imply that they are better at memes than I originally gave them credit for. But no, yeah. So he said that Casper would probably be well received by user-activated soft fork people, and I didn't tell him. I didn't even bring user-activated soft fork up. So I haven't talked to him since like I bought Bitcoin Magazine from him. So I'm gonna DM him or message him after this and try to get more information about Casper, like how it's changed since when I last looked at it. Because I think we can just like have them secure the value from token sales on side chains, because Bitcoin won't put up with bullshit. And like we already have miners in miner game theory. Like they don't, in my opinion, if you want to do proof of stake, you don't want to get into the mess we just like are about to finish up, where you have miners that are actually exchanges that are actually miner activated soft fork or hard forkers. That like the level of 4D chess that goes on with having a proof of work system, like with a solid game theory, it's really, really hard if you're also wanting to do decentralized contracts, but also not have nation states kill you. So I definitely think that in the long run, what happens with like Ethereum potentially is that it becomes like Docker. It containerizes its blockchain to individual side chains per contract. And the address space becomes more like Keybase, where like it's like a decentralized lookup table of people that have shares of side chains, or who bootstrapped the contract engine into play. But I don't think it has a blockchain in the sense that Bitcoin is a blockchain forever. And it wouldn't make sense because it's growing at like a rate that is ridiculous. But if those contracts were instead side chains, that would be interesting. And so that's where I think it could get cool.
Very interesting. Yeah. So because then let me just ask you this, because I like to say this all the time, that I see all the altcoins, even Ethereum and everything, as an extension of Bitcoin, and people think that that's egotistical and just thinking being a Bitcoin maximalist. But as we look at the price, we saw when Bitcoin goes down, everything goes down, right? When Bitcoin goes up, everything goes up. It's very, very clear that Bitcoin
people don't understand abstractions.
Everything.
Like,
yeah. So
Intel could go, like you could go check out this new Angry Birds app for my browser. And if you were this like little kid and your dad was like, I work at Intel, so technically that's an app on my system. They'd be like, no, you're not. No, it's not. You didn't make that. And you're sitting there thinking like, I did the matrix logic that allows that to work. Like it's being run on my system. Ultimately, when exchanges create a market cap for an alt, they're just labeling or annotating in a centralized way the total Bitcoin market cap. I know someone that thought they had Bitcoin, but it turned out that for the past 3 years, they've been holding Dogecoin, and they actually had a net gain. And I had to explain to them that Dogecoin wasn't a sound money because they were confused because it held value and they weren't hacked. I had to basically explain that it's a freak accident that the USB that you were storing Dogecoin on didn't get hacked by an automated script. And had you been holding Bitcoin, you would have probably lost it all. But it doesn't make it sound. And dude, the guy I was telling this to, really smart, like really, really, really smart, but he's just not in crypto. Like he likes the Doge dog. He really likes it. And he likes memes, and he's a great guy. Like I would do business with him any day of the week. But like, that's the logic you're dealing with. And so like, it would just be so much nicer if memes could become side chains and then people could forget their Bitcoin and stop fighting about what it is that they forgot. and eventually wake up to the fact that they're getting exponential gains and that there's probably better like places to put that money other than letting it sit in Doge.
Right.
Dude, they like the Doge merge mining thing over Litecoin. So Dogecoin like proved to me that we could effectively merge mine coins like after they existed, like merge mine chains post existence. Rare Pepe payment channels convinced me that memes were actually money. Counterparty has Rare Pepe payment channels, and Ethereum doesn't have that yet. So you can ERC20 it, but can you Rare Pepe payment? That's the question that I'm asking.
Very interesting. Very interesting. So then you basically see eventually all the altcoins basically running in sidechains.
Yeah. Once the markets freak out and think all the prices go to zero because of the bank runs that happen on all the alts, like because we're just gonna start eating them, and the speculators are gonna be left out because they just don't have. I mean, they're gonna come back. People will always speculate on derivatives, but they're gonna get stuck in. Basically, what I see happening with exchanges and speculators is they're gonna troll each other with lawsuits, and they don't realize that they're really just explaining that or revealing their own worry that they're gonna sue the people holding their coin, and then the exchange operators with their like withdrawal limits are expressing that worry as well. And that worry is propagating to everyone else. I don't actually see any infrastructure issues with the protocol or like any logical flaws in it, but I do see a time bomb in these pooled trading groups that aren't settling in Bitcoin at the end of the day. The luckiest people out there are probably the guys that got in on the Bitstamp as whales early, got 0% transaction fees as an incentive to stay, and then had Trezor adopted, because those guys are able to just trade all day long, settle on hardware that they control, and just do their business. Like I know a guy that like lives like that, and he goes to the Whole Foods because they give him free cash back, and he cashes out with a BitPay card that he got, and like that's how he lives. Like he cashes out on his Trezor, and his BitPay debit card is his bank. And his ATM is the checkout line at the Whole Foods, but he's like a millionaire. And so, I mean, I think that will become a lot more efficient, a lot more standardized, but I wouldn't be holding money in an exchange, but there's nothing you can do about it because of the withdrawal limits if you're a whale that would need to be worried. So I would just like try to not freak out too much, but we all know how that goes.
All the exchanges will definitely be halting withdrawals, on August 1st in order to save their own, companies, and that's and their customers, so we understand that. But I do how
adversarial thinking implies that somebody's going to try to overhype the dangers to get people to act volatile, so that
which
they
is
can
what's
short
happening.
their results.
Yeah,
but that's a logical. That's good. That's logical.
How long do you see the exchanges with holding withdrawals?
Maybe they don't at all. If someone halts withdrawals, it will be because of a surprising outcome, and a surprising outcome will either be profitable or it'll be resulting in a loss. So someone will not halt withdrawals and someone will, because the act of halting withdrawals will bring business to the one that opens up withdrawals. And so, like in my opinion, Poloniex is just literally the troll of Coinbase. Whatever Coinbase does, Poloniex is going to do the opposite. And they're going to do it for as long as there's an arbitrage opportunity that isn't too much of a loss for Coinbase, and Poloniex is just going to fucking do it. Because this one guy that used to he ran like a sheet music store before he built a global exchange for financial currencies. Sheet music. Pretty sure he sold sheet music for pianos.
Yeah. And that's why Tone Vays, it says all of these markets, even in Coinbase, they're just amateurs right now. They're not actual real exchanges yet. I mean,
if this guy studied classical music, he's a pro.
Well, I was about to say.
So Gabriel has a comment. Oh, go ahead. Gabriel.
Yeah, sheet music to crypto is not as far as a step as some people think. So I have a totally off-subject question from what we've been talking about so far. I don't know if you saw my tweet storm about, I think I might have pinned it to my profile, but the one about Reed's number and what's the other one called? The network value, Metcalfe, the Metcalfe's law and Reed's law. And what these are two ways to interpret the value of a network. Metcalfe's law is assumption that each
number of nodes with a net.
Right, it's each node. Yeah, each node connects with one, each other node, and so his idea was, number of nodes squared is basically the general approach to Metcalfe's law. Whereas Reed's law, he considered the number of nodes as well as all the subgroups, in the set. So that's more of a factorial. So the Reed's number is 2 to the n minus 2n minus 1, which is nearly 2n.
It's
which
both.
Is an incredibly huge number.
So like quick sort, like worst case and best case scenarios, it's like one's n log n and like one's linear time. And it literally is based on the state of the information that you're operating on. So like in an ideal situation, I think that it's as the universe reshapes itself to account for the fact that we understand Bitcoin, just like it reshaped itself to account for the fact that we understood gravity and magnetics and all that other stuff. I think what happens is we move towards the best case scenario and we stop living in the worst case. You can use mathematical tricks to turn quick sort's worst case outcome to n log n, which is, or maybe I'm saying the wrong thing there. You can optimize quick sort to have the best case in the worst case. And so understanding and educating people about Bitcoin in time, assuming that there's not like external interference that just totally screws people's heads up, it should result in us having a worst case outcome, or a theoretical worst case for Bitcoin being the same as a theoretical best case. So whichever one of those is the worst case is probably what we've been living with for a while. But in time, it should become the best case for both the best case and the worst case as we optimize. And then, like 800. Yeah.
Wait a second. That didn't make any sense. Back up here. What did you say about best case and worst case?
So Bitcoin's price is based on the chain functioning and all of us understanding that the chain is functioning.
Yep. Okay.
And as we move towards a scenario where we all understand that it's working, we only freak out when it's not working. And it always has worked. So we go from having a network effect that produces value in a worst case way, confuse idiots using a network that works so they think it's magic, to having educated individuals using a logical protocol to have telepathic communications that move value like Willy Wonka. Like then we're just like straight up in the best case scenario, because we're compounding our creative efforts and having functional output. So like, yeah, people would still be able to just like lose their money by being stupid, like a spam attack. But like, we go from having the outcome be the worst case to the outcome always being the best case in the worst case.
The best case in or and?
Well, it's like replacing using the protocol. By the protocol, by how we bring in new users, by how we as an extension of the network explain Bitcoin to them. We make the worst case of what we make ignorance not something that affects the price. And therefore the worst case, being a dumbass, means that it doesn't affect the value store qualities of Bitcoin. Like when Mike Hearn tried to do the hard fork in 2013, the price dropped like 20 something percent. When I did that tweet storm in March, price dropped like 20 something percent. It shouldn't be possible. And eventually that won't be possible. And when that's not possible, everybody that was complaining about Bitcoin being too volatile is going to be complaining about Bitcoin being too immutable, because like that's how it works. And we're going to get there, and it'll be weird. It'll be depressing for some people because everybody will leave. Like they won't, like the heyday will be over, and then they'll just be rich and alone, like the Minecraft guy or whatever. So
we'll just be rich and alone, everybody. We will all be rich and alone. I think that's something.
Decentralization.
I think that's something we can hope for. Something good we can hope for, that all of us can have tons of money because of Bitcoin. I mean, that's I can tell you, if Bitcoin does recreate money like it's trying to do, like it was designed to do, I do believe that will uplift everybody's living standard on the planet. And
they don't have a choice.
Yeah,
like basically.
It's
so
like
you
the
were asking
internet
me earlier about security. Bitcoin ransoms aren't causing people to get hacked. Ransoms are what happen when people compare the idea of your system to Bitcoin as a system, and then the actual ransom itself is a balancing out of an equation regarding security. If you're not on par with Bitcoin's security, you're going to get ransomed for the amount that you should have paid to secure your stuff. And that's why the whole idea of rebuilding the operating system with Bitcoin as the BIOS, as the thing we bootstrap from, is like the logical next step, which means that every single system that's not Bitcoin is deprecated. Government, operating systems, cloud computing services, none of that makes sense because like the way we secure hardware, which we can't trust, is we secure it with a network. So like if there's a government backdoor in your system and all actions cost money and are written to the blockchain, if they were to ever use their exploit against you, they would reveal themselves to a worldwide network that would relay the details of that chip to everybody that has it. And they'd instantly lose like their place in the market, their position in the market.
I think we're watching that happen now. I mean,
yeah,
it was the warm up. And now with Bitcoin, it's kind of like we're just witnessing that gradual collapse.
It's oh yeah, I'm probably gonna move towards making hardware in a couple years, like just because they can't stop me. Eventually, I'll figure out how to do it cheaply, and I hear that ARM is licensing out like 99-cent pieces of plastic that are secure, and so I think I could I think I can ship millions of those. It'll be crazy.
Awesome. And then you can just print them at home yourself.
That would be ideal.
3D print them.
Yeah. Although, yeah, dude, I'm so thankful to the defense distributed guys for doing guns just to push it to the limit. So that's what I know them. Well, Bitstein is really good friends with them. Like he's on the board of Defense Distributed.
Right. They're down in Texas.
They're in Austin, and so they're trolling the world. They're literally doing it because it is freedom of speech. They're not going to go shoot anybody. Now, if you like try to steal their Bitcoin, I'm not saying they won't do something, but like they printed 3D guns, and that's just like, that's rock and roll, dude. It's like pretty awesome. So
that's absolutely anti-establishment. I think I loved it. I mean, it was great. It just turns the nation state on its head, and just makes you realize that, hey, wait a second, the nation state isn't a good idea after all.
There's better ideas. That taxes you.
Yeah, it's just a better ideas.
It's like that true or false thing. Like with you move from Python down to C, and you're trying to make macros for true and false. That's anybody that's trying to talk about governance models for Bitcoin. It's like they get out of the system where they're governed their whole life, and the first thing they try to do when they get out of it is start filling in these constant values that they used to use. And it's like I got one
more example of that. So a lot of C# developers I know came from VB.net, and so they write their own C# left and right methods to mimic the Visual Basic methods that was built in back in Visual Basic. So it's the same thing, right? People are trying to bring what they knew into this new amazing system that's really designed to be better. But the
fact that you know that's how you become a hacker. Because if that happens in a small amount of people like that, the entire output of all the software that they make as a percentage of the population will be biased in a certain way, and those biases will reveal flaws when change is introduced. That's it. All you have to do is look, and you'll be amazed. The first time you run with an idea like that, and then you go look and you find out that there's 50,000 ports open on the open internet because of this like type of issue, you're just gonna just laugh because like
it's logical arbitrage.
Yeah, and when you realize what kind of damage you can do with that power, then you start to realize, like, I mean, if you can control 50,000 machines, if you start doing reflection attacks with like foreign government name servers and shit like that, you could take parts of the internet down. Like that's
crazy stuff.
That's crazy stuff. Like all right, like we don't do what we can do, if that makes sense. If we can do something at all.
Yeah. Well, that's why we have people like you, Andrew, who are the white hats and fight for the users. And I'm glad that we have people like you that can see this crazy stuff, but don't actually, execute
everything.
On destroying
the world. Though. Yeah. Don't believe me.
Nobody listen to what Andrew says.
Yeah, it's like
Don't worry. Most of the chat, most of the listeners seem to have been pretty confused the whole time, so you're good.
Oh, they're confused? I'm not even looking at it.
I think we can edit here. Yeah, definitely, Andrew. I think a lot of people like myself will have to watch this a couple times to really get everything that you said. But awesome interview. Awesome answers. Thank you so much, Andrew, for joining us. We actually went almost 2 hours, and at the height there, we had a little bit over 500 live viewers. So a great conversation, and I hope everybody enjoyed it as much as I did. Hopefully, they can get some new perspectives, some new points, and of course, some new information from this. So thank you guys so much for joining. Everybody in the chat. Everybody is having a great time in the chat. Chat's scrolling by. So we will be back again next Sunday with the regular Bitcoin news show.
Is Brock gonna be there?
Yep, Brock Pierce will be here the next Sunday. You can do whatever you want, Andrew. I'm not gonna tell you to not do shit.
I'm gonna fuck with him. This is gonna be fun.
I don't want to. It's basically pissing you off, Andrew. It's like pissing off 4chan.
You don't want. I don't have a dude. Brock's a cool guy.
Yeah.
I just like I have some opinions about some of his investments, and I'm gonna fuck with him.
I'm sure you do. Yeah. So all right.
So
thanks,
Brock. Yeah.
All right, guys. So thanks so much for joining. We're going to end it here. And again, we'll be back here next Sunday with Brock. And until then, guys, just keep talking Bitcoin, and we'll see you then.
Keep talking Bitcoin.